What's going on, guys? It's your boy, the Adam Westberg Vibes. Back with another video, and this is another horror video. What is it? 3 disturbing Walmart scary horror stories animated. 22 minutes and 47 seconds. Let's do our intro. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, the Adam Westberg Vibes YT. Love wins in 2022. What goes around comes around. You spread love, you get love. Don't spread love all you want, but don't spread COVID. We don't need any more. Wear a mask where they tell you to. Don't argue. Fuck the Karens and cut the bullshit. Also, I'm a little thirsty, so yo, Mikey, hand me a drink. Thanks, Mikey. We have Mountain Dew, part of our intro. Mountain Dew, please sponsor us. It's not gonna happen today, but what? You already know. Hopefully. Someday, baby. Mountain Dew. Best in the world, best in the country. No pop can defeat it. I'm sorry to say this. Actually, one pop can defeat it, and it's only because it has my initials on it. A&W root beer. But I'm just saying this right now. Actually, no, it can't. It would go Mountain Dew, and then A&W root beer, and then any other drink in the world. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys smack that subscribe button and hit that post notification bell to be notified every time I upload. Without further ado, let's hop into this mother. And we are going to turn off our light for this too. We have to turn on our fan because it's hot. But, yeah. You can still see me. Let's hop in.
I'm a 17-year-old male living in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, and this happened April 10th, 2017. The day started out normal. I went to school and came home. I had been talking to my mom about her day for around 30 minutes when my stepfather came pulling up our driveway. My stepfather's job had been stressing him out as of lately, so he's been drinking to cope with the stress. Horrible way of doing so, I know. Anytime my stepfather brings home alcohol, it infuriates my mother due to the fact that he used to be an alcoholic. So, surprise, surprise, they started arguing. Not wanting to hear them argue, I went to my room and decided to take a nap. Around 8 or 9 o'clock, my mother wakes me up and asks if I want to go for a ride. Most people would think this is weird, but it's pretty normal for my mom and me to just take a cruise. She explains that she didn't want to be in the house with my stepfather because he was drunk. I was still in that zombified half-awake sleep, so all I remember is throwing on a jacket in my Vans and getting in the car. My sister was also with us. A quick little backstory on my sister. My sister and her coworker, that I will mention later in the story, both work in the garden center at this Walmart this story takes place at. My mom, my sister, and I decided to get some food and shoot the shit for a little bit until my stepfather eventually passed out from being drunk. After we ate, Mom remembered a few things that she needed to pick up at Walmart. We had just arrived at Walmart when my sister's coworker, Bobby, walks out and starts talking to us. At first, Bobby was just talking about normal Walmart stuff, and then he said something kind of odd. He told us that some guys drove up on him earlier while he was outside in a black BMW and told him that he needs to go check out this car because there's either a really creepy mannequin or a dead body in it. Hearing this automatically caught our attention, and we agreed to go check it out with him after he got off work. About an hour passes, and Bobby got off work. We all head out to the parking lot and get in our vehicles. We watched where Bobby drove to and followed. The car in question was in the far back left corner of the parking lot. Bobby made it there before us, and I saw him get out of his car and look into the car the guys had told him about earlier. He had only looked in that car for a second when his face turned pale and he jumped back into his car. I got out of my car and approached the car Bobby just looked in. I immediately got a bad feeling because of the look on his face, and the strange liquid coming from the car, and that nasty smell that surrounded the area. Imagine that nasty hospital smell that we all know, magnified by 20. That's how it smelled. I turned on my phone's flashlight and looked in the back window of the car. What I saw next made my skin crawl. I saw a lady laying against the door in the back seat of the car. Upon closer examination, I saw a horrifying sight. The lady appeared to be an older Indian lady. Her eyes were sunken back into her head and she was decomposing badly. I noticed what seemed like dried blood on her abdomen and told my sister to call the police. The whole time we were waiting on the cops, I was messaging my friend Jax, explaining the situation to him and trying to calm myself down. He didn't help much because all he was saying was, "Sick. Sent body pics." When the first cop arrived, he walked to the car and shined his flashlight into it. The sight was so horrible it even scared the cop because he almost fell backward and said, "Oh fuck." Shortly after the other cops arrived, I learned something even more disgusting and creepy. The strange liquid I mentioned from earlier turned out to be the lady's body fluid. Unaware of this, Bobby, my mother, my sister, and I all stepped in it. I immediately felt sick. If you look at the picture of the car on the screen, you can see the body fluid under the tire and the shoe prints on the pavement where we stepped in it. To upscale the creepy factor even more, the detective told me this was the second body found in a car that week. After the police were done questioning us and taking our statements, my mom, my sister, and I decided to walk back into Walmart to buy bleach and disinfectant wipes so that we could sanitize our shoes. The whole time we were walking into Walmart, I just kept thinking that I was walking in some lady's body fluid, and I was about to wash her off my shoes like nothing. Thinking like this was driving me insane, so I had to push it out of my head. A few days later, I learned a lot more about the lady. It turns out she was going to Nashville for a job interview, and somehow never made it. I still have no idea how she ended up in my area. Also, it turned out that she was a white lady. She had decomposed so badly in the car that her skin had started to turn brown and wrinkled up, leading me to think that she was an older Indian lady. The cops had also told my sister that the lady was sitting in the car dead for 15 days. That creeped the holy fuck out of my sister, knowing that she had been working for almost 2 weeks with a dead body in the parking lot, completely unaware. The creepiest part, in my opinion, is that her death is still a mystery.
Number 2.
This took place when I worked at a local Walmart about 5 or 6 years ago. I was 21 at the time and had already been working in Walmart for more than a year, so I had my share of experiences with questionable and some pretty scary customers. But there was one customer who burned into my memory that I will never forget, and probably changed my life forever. It was a weekday, so it was fairly slow. I was working alone in the girls' clothing department and focusing on tidying up my area, folding clothes, organizing hangers by size, etc. I had only been about 30 minutes into my shift when a gentleman began passing me and started to slow down. I saw in my peripheral vision that he was looking in my direction, so I looked over expecting him to have a question. What I instead got was him saying, through a painfully wide grin, "Hey baby," followed by a kiss blown in my direction. I furrowed my brow and pursed my lips in confusion, unsure of whether he was just trying to be funny or was truly that god-awful at wooing women. He made his kissy face for what was probably a full minute, And while I studied him awkwardly, I couldn't help but realize his sense of style seemed to be very heavily influenced by that guy Pauly D from Jersey Shore. Same hairstyle, clothing style, the whole shebang. It was actually kind of amusing. After blowing his puckered kisses, he moved along, and I continued my work. For the next hour, I saw him pass by, in the same direction many more times. At least 6 through 7 that I could count when I was actually paying attention, and the first 2 times he did the same thing, calling me baby and blowing his kisses. It started to get obnoxious after the 3rd time, so I moved farther into my department and faced the opposite direction when I saw him passing. He responded by changing his path and was now walking directly through the neighboring clothing sections, and was slowly getting closer and closer with each passing, as if he were circling in like a shark around my figurative boat. The longer he circled, the more my gut clenched. Eventually, he directly approached me. He reached out and slightly caressed my hair from behind me and held it in his fingers for a couple of seconds. I had very long hair, so he wasn't right up to my face with his hand or anything. But still, ew. I turned around to see him holding my hair, and I took it back into my hands, wide-eyed. "You have very beautiful hair. You're so beautiful." "Thank you?" I didn't want to snap due to fear of getting myself in trouble, and plus since I was deeper into my department, there wasn't exactly a lot of other people around that would see me anymore, and I didn't want to set him off if I got an attitude. I started to slightly shake with mild anxiety and felt my face get hot as my blood pressure rose. My gut was screaming at me that something was seriously wrong with this guy. Again, he carried on walking without another word, but he winked and blew another kiss. It was then that I realized that the cart he had had with him only had 2 items in it. So he had been circling my area for more than an hour, and most likely wasn't even truly shopping. For general merchandise or food anyway. I decided this was a good opportunity to take a break and ran off to hide in the break room for the usual 15 minutes I was given. While I was in there, I saw my coworker and good friend Chris come in, and I told him briefly about what was going on. Mainly just that a guy had been circling around me and calling me baby, but that was all I could squeeze in before I had to go back to my post. He expressed that he found the guy creepy, and told me that he was due to clock out in a couple of hours, so he'd come check on me on his way out to see if the guy let up. 2 hours seemed like more than enough time for him to leave, right? I mean, maybe he was already gone since I wasn't in my department for those 15 minutes anyway. Well, I didn't necessarily see him. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting him to come from behind me. I even kept my hair over my shoulder in front of me so it wasn't flowing down my back anymore, and I became more and more paranoid as it started to sink in that this complete stranger just made physical contact with me in a way that I wasn't comfortable with, and I wasn't sure if he would do it again or do worse. The unknown was frightening. I kept working in this anxious state as I made my way over to the girls' jeans shelves and began removing wadded piles of jeans to fold. That's when I saw him again. He was behind the shelves, watching me from there for God knows how long. An hour and a half is a long time if not physically seeing him, but realizing he never actually left the store like you'd hoped. When I saw him, I let out a short gasp, dropped the jeans and backed up with my hands to my chest. He gave a shit-eating grin with a sly chuckle. He walks around the shelf and asks, "Did I scare you?" "Yeah, in fact you did." I heard the fear in my voice this time, and I'm certain he did too. He apologized, but he didn't leave. He instead asked me questions. Questions he had no business asking. I gave every single one with a vague or sarcastic answer. "What time do you get off work?" "Not soon enough." "Where do you live?" "Not around here." "Do you like to hang out anywhere after work?" "Anywhere that's with my boyfriend." "How long have you been with your boyfriend?" "A long time." Eventually he realized I wasn't giving him the desired information he wanted, so he moved along once more, but this time saying he'd be back later. I took out my phone to check the time after this, And that's when everything dawned on me how much worse this was than I initially thought. He had been there for almost 3.5 hours. Not only was his dedication scary enough, but what was worse was that I was only working a half day, meaning my shift was over in less than an hour, and I was truly and utterly afraid that he was going to follow me to my car, or worse, home. As I looked at my phone in horror, almost as if I physically called him, Chris came by after clocking out as he'd promised. My face was bright red, and I felt as though I was going to have a panic attack. I told Chris that the man was still here, and he was getting worse. I told him everything as fast and quietly as I could in case Polly Wannabe came back before I could finish. Chris, I don't know what to do. He's still circling me like a shark and watching me from behind the shelves. He was asking me a bunch of questions I didn't want to answer, and he's wondering what time I'm off work. Chris, he fucking touched and caressed my hair. I don't know what to do. I have 30 minutes left on my shift, and I don't know what this guy is capable of or what he's planning. I don't even know this guy's name. I'm scared, and I don't know what the fuck to do. Chris asked which way the guy went so he could see him for a description, and I told him that if he waited a few minutes, he would come back on his own. So he did, and he tried to distract me with a normal conversation to calm me down. And about 5 minutes in, here he comes. I told Chris to act normal and told him that the guy was coming up to my right. We kept holding our conversation as Chris casually glanced over. I held a fake smile for a moment as though our conversation was going ever so well, and I looked over with my eyes. Polly Wannabe was glaring at Chris. Daggers that could cut thin air locked in his direction, turning his head as he passed by. Chris played dumb as if he didn't notice, and said out loud that he was going to grab his stuff and turned to head back toward the back room, despite the fact he was on his way out the door. After Chris left, my creepy admirer came back as though he were waiting for that, bumping me slightly with his cart, asking me if that was my boyfriend. I told him that he wasn't, although I probably should have lied now that I think about it. He began asking if I could get him a job there. What? And started asking me questions about what I usually do, what departments I work. Again, I gave vague answers. Not that it would do much because no matter where exactly I am at work, I'm still somewhere in the building and could be found rather easily. As he's holding the Q&A, I see two managers, a man and a woman, walking into my department as Chris passes by giving me a reassuring nod that Polly Wannabe didn't see. The managers just stood there, watching us. I looked over at them with a cry for help in my eyes, and they inched closer. The creeper took notice and turned to me, silent for a moment. Am I getting you in trouble? The last words I spoke to him were, it's not me that's about to be in trouble. The jig was up. He left his cart, that still had the same 2 items in it, and power walked out of the store.
Get the fuck.
The managers came up and asked me if he was bothering me, and I told them everything. The shark circling, the watching behind shelves, the uncomfortable questions, the hair touching, everything. And topped it off with the fact that it went on for what was now almost 4 hours. They told me they would check the cameras and see if they could get a good shot of his face so security could keep a record of the incident in case he returned. Also to see if he bothered anyone else. They then asked one of my managers to walk me to my car after my shift, and to wait until I pulled out of the lot before returning indoors to make sure I wasn't obviously being followed. I made it home safely and without issues, but the fear still lingered. I could never return to work without the paranoia again. I worked there for a little more than another year and he never ended up coming back. That I saw anyway. But I never forgot him. I kept constantly looking over my shoulder when I worked alone and feared that he'd return. And any time the fear began to disperse, I had nightmares that would remind me of him. Those nightmares came and went until about 2 years ago. Even though I know the situation wasn't as bad as it could have been, my overthinking and anxiety kept repeating, what if, and making me think about what he could have possibly had planned had he succeeded at sticking around until I left for the day. It affected my ability to go anywhere in public alone, even to this day. After the nightmares finally stopped, however, I was in for a surprise that I may not have been overthinking things as much as I had thought, that my gut feelings were correct. His mugshot showed up on my newsfeed in July of 2017. The local sheriff's office was looking for him and found him shortly after. He was wanted for stalking. Apparently going to businesses and picking out women to hang around, watch, and harass was a hobby of his. Exposing himself to women, masturbating in front of a store where he was watching women work through the window, grabbing a woman's breast, and grabbing a woman between the legs. He pleaded no contest to these charges. As I looked at his mugshot in disbelief, I took the opportunity, now having his name, to look into his criminal history. On top of the most recent charges I just listed, he had been arrested for many counts of different types of battery on people of different ages, one being older than 65, which is really low, and at least one count included him being armed. But the charge that hit me the hardest was that about a year before my encounter with him, he was charged with kidnapping. Whether or not something of that nature had been planned for me, I may never know, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out. I consider myself very fortunate that I didn't have it as bad as the other poor souls he was able to get his hands on, thanks to Chris and the managers that watched over me. Why this man was able to walk free so long despite his consistent disgusting actions is a mystery, and I don't know what his sentencing was last July. But if the justice system lets him roam once more, all I can say is that I hope we never meet again.
I work at Walmart, and as many of you might know, a lot of our stores have associates managing the front entrance to ensure that all customers that enter the store are wearing masks. The order came into effect on July 20th, and all associates had to attend a mandatory training seminar, not only to educate them on the reasoning behind the decision, but also how to deal with any customers who refuse to comply with the steps put in place to control the spread.
I gotta install the Chime app today and get started.
Understood that since there was a lot of pushback with regards to mask wearing, it would be a high-pressure role, so a system was put in place whereby each shift would have a different associate working with the usual greeter, whose job was to enforce the new regulation. The way they put it, if someone refused to wear a mask when entering the store, it was the relevant associate's job to, quote, find a solution to the problem, which from what I understood was just a polite way of saying, either wear a mask in the store or get lost. We were even authorized to give out free masks to people to basically make it impossible to give us a I can't afford one excuse. So anyway, once the order was put in place, it only took a few days before it was my turn to man the front entrance. And I'll admit, I was kind of nervous about it, as I had already heard a few horror stories from other associates who'd gotten into arguments with irate Karens who screamed about infringing their rights and all that other stuff. But for the first few hours, everything was cool. Not a single person had a problem with putting a mask on, and those that had either forgotten to bring one or hadn't gotten word of the enforcement had absolutely no problem taking one of the free ones that we were instructed to give out. Then, just as I thought the whole thing was going to be much easier than first anticipated, I see this woman pushing a cart towards the front entrance who I could just tell was going to be a problem. If there's one thing working with the public had gotten me attuned to, it's that some people just give off a whole bunch of bad energy, and this woman was one of them. So, as you can guess, when I stop her and politely tell her that she needs to wear a mask to shop in our Walmart, she starts pushing back. After a few minutes of back and forth with her getting increasingly confrontational and combative, she tried to straight up barge past me with her shopping cart, so unfortunately I had to call security to get her to leave. But before she does, she looks me dead in the eye and says, "You're gonna be sorry for this, young man. You just wait and see." I figured she was going to attempt to make a complaint to corporate, and totally did not expect what happened next. Because not long after the Karen leaves, this other dude comes marching up to the front entrance, only this guy is actually wearing a face covering. I didn't figure he was going to be a problem until it became obvious that he wasn't wearing a mask to stop the spread. He was wearing a mask because he didn't want to be identified when he pulled a knife out of his back pocket and put it right up to my throat. He starts growling all this stuff while You think it's okay to treat women like that, huh? And how punks like you need to learn respect. Turns out it was Karen's husband, who she'd evidently unleashed on me because I disrespected her or whatever. Dude, feeling the cold metal of that blade against my throat, I can't even tell you how scary that was for me. Everything just kind of slowed down while I waited for him to take it away. I mean, I didn't really think he was going to do anything. There were so many witnesses around and stuff, but Jesus, there is still that chance that he was crazy enough to actually do it, you know? He left long before the cops arrived to take statements, and as far as I know, they never found the guy to arrest him. This whole pandemic thing has been hard on all the associates. I mean, it's been tough on everyone, but I feel like for some people it's driving them to the absolute breaking point. I'm just thankful that guy didn't have it in him to actually do anything, or I might not be around to be writing.
Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you guys did enjoy, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you guys want to see more of these videos without me reacting to them, link will be in the description to the person's channel that I react to. Love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!